Hey, how's it going, guys? Today we're going to talk about debt slaying. And what I mean by debt slaying is if you want to get out of debt, the best way to do it is to treat debt as some kind of evil entity, because that's what it is. An entity that you've most likely built up yourself, but an evil entity nonetheless. For most people wanting to travel, your ideal method would be to do it debt free. And that's pretty much what we're doing. Liz and I didn't have a lot of debt. We've both been pretty smart. I mean, we're in our late 20s. We still have some debt. She's had a little bit of consumer debt, student loans. I've had student loans, car debt. But this past year, we've eliminated quite a bit of it. And we've become what I like to call debt slayers. And you can be a debt slayer too. And a lot of people say, oh, well, I have no extra money to put aside and all that stuff, you know. Well, if you don't have any money to put aside, then how are you going to put any money aside to travel? Easy. You can. You just got to make sure that your expenses don't exceed your income. And one way to do this is you want to cut down your cost of living significantly. Okay? That could be moving into a cheaper place. It could be selling stuff and not buying anything new. You know, just getting used stuff, thrifty stuff. It could be changing your eating habits. I think everybody should eat good. Everybody should eat healthy as possible. Shop as much as possible. When you do eat at good restaurants, but kind of watch it, you know. Set a budget and cut as many corners as possible. Well, I'm going to tell you a little bit of my own personal story since, you know, this is my show. And, well, we'll start with a year ago. Okay, it is March right now. 1 year ago, I had just under $30,000 in debt. And I've killed the vast majority of that. Now, I'm not going to lie and say I'm completely debt-free. And in fact, there's plenty of people who travel with some debt. But some debt can be reasonable. As long as it's got low interest, low payments, and it's manageable, then I see no reason why you should let a little bit of debt stop you. Right now, my only debt are my student loans, and I only owe $90 a month on them, and the interest rate is, of course, really, really low on them. But I had this horrible car debt. Okay, I had no choice. I pretty much had no choice but to get whatever vehicle I could, and I had to get it from one of those buy here, pay here places. I won't mention the name. It's a big one, but you've probably heard of them. But anyhow, basically, I ended up paying a little over $14,000 for a car that was worth less than $5,000, and at an alarming interest rate, 21.9% interest. And from what I understand, a lot of people paid higher interest than that. I was one of the good ones, just because I had limited credit history, not necessarily bad. My payments were $390 a month, but they were broken up in every 2 weeks. And for the first few months, now I did pay a couple thousand ahead. I paid $1,000 down on it, and in the first 3 payments, I paid up $1,000. So I was ahead quite a bit. Okay, but by this time last year, last March, I still owed about $12,000 on it, maybe 12.5, something like that. And I just decided to kick it into high gear at the end of spring, beginning of summer. And I started paying double and triple payments. Well, back in August, Liz and I decided to team up together and just destroy our debt entirely. That's also around the time we started planning our big trip that we're planning right now. Well, we ended up conquering it in no time. we just made it where any extra income went straight to the debt. And I'm talking 60 to 70% of my income and probably about 30-40% of hers, if not more, just going to paying off my debt. And I set a goal at the end of the summer to have my car completely paid off by the first week of January. Well, January 9th, I had the title in my hand. So I missed my target date by 2 days. 2 days. And as far as Liz's debt, she had $2,000 or $3,000 in credit card debt that she was able to consolidate with her car, which she has a much newer car than mine and definitely worth the value. And she was able to get a good deal through her credit union, which is my credit union too, where they would consolidate the credit card debt with her car debt, and it would lower the interest significantly on both. It would make it one interest rate, one payment, and it kept the monthly payments the same. It was one payment. I highly advise that if you can consolidate your debt, do it. But only if it lowers your interest rate and your payments. Even if it keeps the payments the same, as long as it doesn't raise the payments. Maybe, give or take $20, $30 a month, that's fine. But as long as your interest rate isn't higher than it would be if you hadn't have consolidated. Because then you're just digging a deeper hole. But anyway, as far as becoming a debt slayer, what you want to do is you want to get a game plan going and you want to stick to it. I highly recommend following the method that Dave Ramsey talks about. If you don't know who Dave Ramsey is, you need to check him out. Okay, he's old school fiscally conservative, and that's a good thing. That is a good thing. He believes you get out of debt and then you invest your money, and you invest it wisely. And I'm with him on that. And what you want to do is you want to roll your debt, as he puts it. He calls it, the debt rollout, I guess is what I think the term he uses. The snowball method, that's it, snowball method. And what you want to do is you want to choose which is more heartbreaking to you. Do you want to kill off the highest interest debt or the biggest sum debt? What I did was I chose the highest interest debt. And that was considering both me and Liz together, as if we had one unit, because we are a functioning unit together. A house divided against itself cannot stand. And we took my debt because it had the highest interest, and we killed that first. Then we moved on to her debt because it had the second highest interest. And she's got very small student loans left, so we're not worried about those. And my student loans are still there, yeah, but I'm not worried about them. Once you've rolled the debt down and you've got it taken out, don't get in any more debt. Don't take on any credit cards you can't handle. Don't open up any accounts that you can't take care of. And you want to take the money that you've been investing and put it into savings if you're wanting to travel. If you're not wanting to travel, or if you're already traveling and making a living while you're traveling, then what you want to do is you want to take the same amount of money that you've put into paying off your debt, and you want to roll that straight into an investment. A good investment. Something that's safe, but still has some, gain to it. You don't just want to get into any old thing. You definitely don't want to get into stocks and bonds right away until you know what you're doing. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I know exactly what I'm doing either. But what you want to do is you want to get into something like mutual funds or index funds, something that will long haul it for you, but not be too risky, but at the same time still have some momentum. Now, what I suggest doing, from what I've learned from several people I know who are in the investing game, is for people in my age group and younger, pretty much 30 and younger, it's highly advised to take at least 5 to 15% of your income, roll it into an index fund or two, and then every year you want to rebalance. So that way the fat gets trimmed and then the nutrients go in and kind of regrow the plant, so to speak. Once you've got a good index fund going, don't touch that money. Keep it going. Keep rolling money into it, but don't take anything out. Let it gradually increase on its own. It'll grow up one day. As far as traveling goes, what our game plan is, we're going to open up an account. You might have heard of them. It's called Charles Schwab. Charles Schwab is like a dream come true for travelers when it comes to checking accounts. It's an online checking account that is high yield, meaning it gains a little bit of interest. Nothing spectacular, but enough to where if you kept a good sum of money in there, then you'd end up making a little bit. And also have it connected to an index fund, probably through Charles Schwab as well, because then you can just transfer funds over to it when you want to. Charles Schwab has 0 foreign transaction fees. It has no ATM fees. If an ATM charges you, at the end of the month, Charles Schwab will actually reimburse you the money that you were charged. It's pretty awesome. So if you end up opening an account like a Charles Schwab high yield checking account, that can be your primary account while traveling. And you can have a savings account too to keep your money separate. You can have index funds, mutual funds, whatever, investments separate. I get that. And you want to have some cash on you. And then, of course, if you had a credit card. If you choose to do like Liz and I are doing and leaving the low interest debt there when you decide to travel with the low payments, then what you should probably do, at least this is what we're doing, is keeping a separate account open with a limited amount of money, like your reserve money maybe, and tie your debt payments to it. Like, for example, every month an automatic payment will go out for our student loans. And we know that money is going to last a certain amount of time, because if it takes 180 out, because our two combined will be like 180 something, 180 every month, then over the course of a year, that's around $2,000. Okay, well, if the account is building a little bit of interest, then that's going to kind of keep costs down for you, keep overhead down for you, and you're going to be able to just breathe a little bit and not have to deal with it all the time by having it set as an automatic payment. And that's the real kicker there. Whenever you travel, you want to be able to relax. Even if you're not doing the permanent vacation thing and you're living and working abroad, you want to be able to chill out, and not have to worry about the debt that you left at home, which is why you should leave the debt at home. You really want to pay most of it off. But I became a debt slayer because I said, you know what, I'm sick and tired of this high interest. That's what it came down to. That's why I took 60 or more % of my income and just annihilated the debt. And I ended up paying off my $14,500 car that's worth under $5,000 in 16 months. And I didn't really even start paying on it heavily until the last 8 months. And it felt amazing just getting it paid off and just knowing that I own the car. And even though I took a loss on it, when I do sell it, I'll be able to get a little something back out of it. The bottom line of all this is that freedom from debt means freedom to do what you want to do. If you're not worried about what you're going to pay, you don't want to leave a debt at home. That's definitely, you don't want to go and say, oh, I still owe on the car. You don't, unless you're just going out for like a couple weeks or a month maybe. But if you're going to go out for a significant journey and you're going to take the big plunge, you don't want to worry about what's sitting in the garage. You don't want to worry about a house even, unless you've already got the money to be paying for that. If you are free from all ties fiscally at home, then fiscally you can apply yourself a lot better out in the world traveling. Really, when it comes down to it, there are a lot of people who have had way, way harder debt than I even had and were able to beat it down. And that's because they applied themselves. And that's how I knew that I could pay off what I've paid off and what we've paid off together the way we have, because when you've got people out there that were, I would consider myself knee-deep. No, I wouldn't even consider myself knee-deep. I was shin-deep maybe, but not knee-deep. But there's people knee-deep, waist-deep, and, overhead, in debt. And that's just a terrible way to live regardless of whether you're going to travel or not. And especially if you're wanting to travel, then you just want to be freed from that. But once you get freed from that, and you get the last little bit of loose ends kind of hanging there, and maybe you're just paying a little bit, auto payment every month, whatever, then you can pretty much do whatever you want. I mean, think about it. If you've got no house payment, no car payment, no insurance, no gas. Food is dirt cheap because you go to places where the food is cheap, or you make it yourself, or you get free meals because you meet up with other travelers and they offer you things. Then what are your expenses really? Getting there, accommodation, and activities. That's really the three main things right there. And you can do all those things very, very comfortably if you don't have that overhead at home. So that's why I suggest getting on the debt, even if you don't plan on traveling right now. If you know that in the future you're wanting to travel, and I'm talking like 5 years in the future, not like next year I'm going to travel, I'm going to have to hurry and beat this debt down, because that's basically what we're doing and have been doing. And it's worked for us, but for some people the overhead's just too high to plan like that. So if you're planning on 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, then at least if you get a heavy attack out right at the front and you stick with it and it's all gone, you'll be amazed with yourself. You will say, wow, if I can do this, I can do anything. I won't go into too many details about my own income, but I make pretty decent money in my job. Pretty fair for a walk-in job where you don't have to have a degree or anything. It's still not a big, heavy paying job. So people wouldn't normally expect me to be able to put up the kind of money I put up, but that's just because I prioritized. I decided that I don't want to keep up with the Joneses. I decided that I want to get out there and do the things that I want to do. And I decided that mine and Liz's relationship together comes first over material things, and that our relationship would be better off if we got an experience like we're planning. So if you want experience out of life, and you want to further your mind, your lifestyle as far as health and everything, because you're going to stay fit out there, you're going to eat better. It's just proven statistically that people live longer and better whenever they have more fulfilling lives. And I'm going to do a video in the future on slowing down and speeding up time when it comes to mundane activities and more fulfilling lifestyles, because that is a huge factor too, but that's for a different video. Anyway, if you take anything at all from this, just know that you can be a debt slayer too. All you have to do is apply yourself. Thank you for watching Travel and Root Beer.